Joel Lalgee and Marcus Sawyer welcome you to AI and Recruiting, the show where they break down how AI is transforming hiring, leadership, and the future of work. Expect real talk, smart tools, and bold conversations with the people shaping what's next. Let's get into it.
Welcome. Shelly Morales, how are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
Doing really well. Great to have you on the podcast and really excited to share your journey with the world because you've had some journey with building your organization, which we're going to talk about soon, and also a career in HR that has involved connecting, meeting, and building some of the most iconic teams that exist. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today.
I'm excited to be here.
So why don't we get started? Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your background and how you actually got started in HR and building your business in recruiting?
So 2.5, almost 3 decades in HR leadership roles across big tech and small tech up to and including chief people officer roles at public and private companies is my career journey. That led me to starting my own recruiting business, which is called MoralesHR. And we do search from everything from executives to individual contributors across all industries, levels, and professions. And the way it all got started, Marcus, is I don't know if I've ever even told you this. My mom owned a small business called a Happy Hot Dog, and I was going to be a happy hot dog owner.
Wow.
And that turned to no college and lots of fun for about 1.5 years and leading a business at a very young age. And then my mom sold all those restaurants. And I was like, oh, shoot, now what do I do? And so I ended up as a receptionist in a medical device company and just kept saying, what else can I do? Led me to HR and led me up that career path to an amazing journey to the top of that career. And then where I made the pivot, or why I made the pivot, was I just really wanted to make a bigger difference in people's lives. And in the top HR job, you do have a lot of influence, but you're really a little bit constrained by the company you work for, the CEO you work for, and what the mission is of that company. So as I thought about our function of HR, which I think is a fabulous profession, actually, I really think that recruiting needed a little bit of help in that. I think tech is so amazing, Marcus. Like, we are doing wonderful, wonderful things on the technology front. And yet getting employed and being employed is a very human experience. And so I wanted to put a little bit of that back into the ecosystem. We launched our website, our MoralesHR website, with a community approach 2 years ago, literally almost to the day. And that where people join the community before there's ever a job. So we get to know them and understand who they are in a one-on-one basis. And now we're leveraging technology underneath and searching for candidates in different ways than we ever have before, but we're keeping that really close human experience.
Yeah,
it's kind of the bridged version right there.
Wow. So there's been an evolution here, right? As you mentioned. So looking at, as you mentioned, the organization, the business that your family had started, and trying to figure out, what do you want to do? Where would you like to be? How do you want to have impact in the world? And I think that's a question that many people are tussling with at the moment because of the topic that we call the great restructuring. And there's a lot of evolution in that. We, as you know, EQ started as a community as well. So we're a big believer in community. That's the name of the company, EQ Community. And there's this element of human connection that I know that you not only talk about, but you live and breathe, and your organization does. That's so important when helping people make that really humongous decision of like, what role do they want to go into next? How do you see that continuing to evolve and shape as we get more technology in play? How does the human connection continue to thrive with so much information, so much technology, and so many tools available for people to use, in your opinion?
I think the biggest thing is that everyone needs to remember that we are always changing, always evolving. Jobs and opportunities and roles and all of those things that keep us busy on a day-to-day basis have always been evolving. And I think now people are faced with it's evolving at a pace that nobody ever expected, especially in, I'll call them real professional-based organizations that are used to like a good rhythm. Yes, there's been technology, but it has not advanced so quickly. And so what I'm seeing as I talk to people literally every single day is there's a lot of fear about where we're at and what will happen to the humans. And I tell everyone, don't be scared, just be prepared. Start to think about what is in my world of what I do today that could be done in a more efficient way, which could mean technology, or could mean something else. And so I advise folks and talk to folks about thinking about their roles differently. And what I'm seeing is there is a little bit of shift to that. And so people are starting to really wrap their arms around the fact I can't change that my job is changing. What I can change is how I feel about it. And so that's where I see people starting to lean in a little bit more. It is a really, really hard economy for getting some jobs. And some jobs are going to go away, but those people will still work.
Right.
It's just about what will they going to be different.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think one of the things you touched on was, hasn't been used recently, is feeling. And the feelings are important of like how's a team morale feeling, right? Probably some puns in the name there. And how is the organization feel about the work that you're doing? How do you feel about when you get up? We were talking a little bit earlier offline, all right? Like when we have situations that might feel slightly uncomfortable, how do you adapt to those, right? And everybody has their coping mechanisms. And I think just by providing that guide to individuals is super important at this time where there's some uncertainty. And one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about has been, as this landscape continues to evolve, what is the expectation not only of the candidates? So I look at the 3 C's, the candidates, colleagues, and the clients, right? But what's the expectations of your candidates and then your clients in this world? Because I've had some mixed discussions from people more recently around the fact that, hey, like if you're dressing up a candidate at the moment with AI, it can be very difficult for you to tell whether or not that's a great resume or that's a great candidate. Are you hearing much of that at the moment? And how are you dealing with that?
Yeah. So so let me start with expectations of clients and candidates from my perspective. I fundamentally believe that the biggest thing that we have the opportunity to do is choose who we are with day in and day out. So I choose that from a client perspective and a candidate perspective. I want candidates to feel loved and cared for, and that's why every single person has the opportunity to speak to somebody live. And it really goes into the second part of your question, which is around like, is it AI or is it a real person? Who is it? How? And so more and more, this human connection becomes more and more important. In like, it's like, yes, we can use technology to identify 50 candidates that could be on paper a perfect fit, but we have no idea if they're going to be a perfect fit in the company until we speak to them personally. And so we really lean into that, but don't shy away from the technology that helps us, that enables us to do that more efficiently, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm encouraging folks. When I think about clients, I also have this, I choose to only be with kind humans. That is from a client or a candidate perspective. And I think that's taking the folks that we're putting forward, the real candidates that we're putting forward, and not all the noise that gets created from automation, to a whole nother level. The folks that we're putting into a client's ecosystem, we have vetted on a personal level. Nobody would ever make it past us without that. And some people will say that's not scalable. And I think you have to step back and look at it to say it's the only way to ensure the right connection is thinking about the humans first. But one of the challenges, and you and I have talked about this in the past, is automation has created so much noise that now we're going to need automation to cut through the noise. And that's where it gets super, super tricky. right? And that's where the humans really do come in.
Yeah, I think reading what's not on the resume is the key skill of a recruiter, because there are many documents at the moment that exist, which we call resumes, that have been organized in a way to get somebody in the door. But the challenge is, and you obviously see it with the different types of employment modes that you work on, because you don't just do full time, but if it's contract work, then you actually need someone to do that job and deliver that outcome and fill a gap. And that gets found out really, really quickly, because the nature of the contract work is that you want that contract to continue. You want that hiring manager to call you back when they have another need. And if they don't get what they need, then it becomes really, really difficult. And so I think a lot about misrepresentation of the candidates themselves, but then also on the other end of the spectrum, not every candidate's good at talking about what they've done or writing their resume, but they're really good at the work. So I also wonder if you're seeing a bit of that, or how you think about that, because I think that's a huge opportunity to lean in to everything that's not so-called scalable. And I have an opinion on that. I think if you're providing a service-based business, doesn't matter if it's scalable or not. It matters about the quality of the service that you deliver.
I'm seeing a large uptick. So you and I have also talked about this, that fractional, the idea of fractional employment has been on the rise for a long time. And that's for a whole host of reasons. In some cases, people just think they're going to work less and get paid more. That is not true. Some are like, I just don't want this full-time gig anymore. I'd only want to work fraction of time. And it is more of a hustle. For sure, it's more of a hustle, because you are proving yourself on a more regular basis. Even though regular full-time employees should be having the same mindset, sometimes there's a little bit of complacency exists once you're inside. The misrepresentation component is one where, for some reason, which is hard for me to understand why, people feel like they can elaborate in a resume, they can elaborate in a LinkedIn profile, and it's a little bit of, I'll fake it till I make it once I'm there, right? You do see that phenomenon actually happens, that the elaboration piece is a little bit more in men than it is in women, is what I have identified throughout the years of just no scientific data behind it, Marcus. It just kind of seems to be what it is. And maybe it's I feel like if I've kind of done it, I've really done it, versus I really have to have done it all to be able to say I've done it. So we do see some of that. Also, the misrepresentation in resumes coming from fake candidates, that's true misrepresentation, right? People that don't actually exist or have never done that job before are saying they can, because they can get through processes.
So thinking about that misrepresentation, and also just AI at large, where do you think, and where have you found that AI is the most useful within the hiring process? And what should companies like ourselves at EQ, where we provide AI solutions for the recruiting industry, both on finding clients and then also screening candidates, where should we be focused?
So let me talk about the clients first. So I think as you think about what do your clients need, what they need is, they need quality, not quantity, right? Because they can get quantity all day long by just doing a connector, right? So if I were in your shoes, I would be thinking about, how can I give them more definitive folks who will probably fit the profile of what they're looking for, and give them then the opportunity to easily access them. So the challenge you often have is that in providers such as the services that you provide, oftentimes the contact information isn't good. The links to the profiles, the links to how I would access them as your client, those are the stronger that data into me can be, the better off I'm going to be, and the more likely to be to use your service. It's like one of our biggest challenges with a lot of AI tools. It's like garbage in, garbage out. If I don't get good input, I don't know how to digest it and utilize it. So if you can give me, which I know you do because I've seen the output from you, if you can give me really good input, then I can determine what do I do with it on the inside, right? From the candidate's perspective, what I would say, as you're thinking about everybody in your community, how is it that you make them feel like they're more than just a number on a page or a name, but they really matter? Because that is what we're seeing more and more is AI is pushing out amazing, amazing people simply because they don't check one box or have some specific skill and so we have this like downward cycle that's happening, right? People are getting auto rejected, never spoken to. And then when they get on the phone with somebody, they're just like, oh my gosh, how do I talk? Where's my palm stone? Like, I need to have like a way to get back to this human experience. And so I think this is why like partnerships with ours, Marcus, as we think about how do we do both? How do we leverage technology and AI to bring people to the funnel and then really validate them to ensure they're going to be good as we push them through. And good being qualified for the job, the right fit for the organization, good humans looking to make a difference in the world. Like all of those things I think are really important in the processes.
Yeah, I think all of the things that you mentioned as well, they take time and care, right? And people talk about candidate experience, but it's also like candidate care. Like, how do you care for the people that you're connecting with? And I think it goes amiss as you start to do anything at mass, right? Like you have the kind of artisanal way of doing things, and then it goes to an industrial way of doing things, and you miss key elements. And that quality that you talk about, I think doubling down and bringing AI to the forefront to build quality is a key. One of the opportunities I see is leveraging AI to build trust. And it might sound like one of those things where it's like, well, how is the AI going to build trust? But it's almost what you'd said earlier, which is building trust to like deeply understand the people that you're connecting with so they're not just a number. Because I know, and I think, as you know, is like if you get into a call, you get into an environment and you know more about that person, or you've taken the time to understand who they are, typically the conversation goes a little bit better. Are you thinking about that as well? Yeah, I'd love to learn more about how you also implement it.
Yeah. So one of the things that's unique about Morales HR is, yes, we do traditional outreach and sourcing. We leverage tools like you have brought to the ecosystem. We also leverage our community and do outreach that way. But the biggest thing that has mattered for us is taking all of the input that comes from these very trusted environments and then layering on the fact that we speak to everybody, or at least give everybody the opportunity to speak to us, because that conversation is not about the resume or the profile. That's about who they are and what is important to them and what do they want. And even if we don't have a role for them, they now feel cared for. And so that is really what we're seeing is making the difference for us.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think recruiting has been too transactional, but building amazing relationships is something that takes time, and it's not what you can get out of somebody like right now. It's more how can you build together longer term. So you almost have to bet on people in certain spaces. And I know you do this and we've seen it. It's like when we had our community, we just knew that person was going to do great and they were going to get their next role if they had a bad situation. So you just want to take care of them, make sure that they're good. And the medium and long term, there's ways to collaborate. We're going to switch gears slightly as we're actually getting towards the tail end, but not completely different to our discussion, but really around leadership lessons. And you've been involved in a lot of the large technology shifts, being in the Bay Area like we are, right? We see a lot that happens. And there's been some huge decisions that I imagine have been made. And some of these shifts, if you've been part of them, are going to have an impact on how you lead and organize your business. What are some of the shifts that you've seen that have kind of changed the way that you think about leading and advising your clients that you think our audience should be aware of?
I think the biggest shift when it comes to leading and thinking about what do we do differently in the world of AI and technology is it's keeping the human experience, but it is leveraging tools that are based on science that are then turning that science into ways that we can interact. Like it's more about knowledge gaining that used to be done by sitting in a classroom and having somebody speak to you, which by the way has its place. But I think we can leverage the technology that's existing around us. As an example, there's a company called Zappa. They're creating an app where you can actually understand what's happening inside your company and your ecosystem, and you can set yourself up to have a good one-on-one with somebody or a good meeting with someone because they're using those internally, not the external data that we're getting so much input from, but internally, what is the culture of this company? What are the values of this company? And who is this person? So I think as leaders, well, let me back up for one moment. What has typically happened is you become a leader. The older you are, the more leadership opportunities you have had and the more groups you've led, and you kind of go up that kind of scale in your career. With technology, we have people becoming leaders sooner than they ever have, and therefore they don't have that real-time experience that have maybe been good or bad along the way, and they've learned from that themselves. So I think there's a little bit of both. It's looking for mentors and coaches and guides, real people who can help you. It's leveraging technologies like Zappa to say, gosh, I need to know something inside my company, but this is just, or this is information that I might be good for anybody. It doesn't need to be necessarily from my company. So it's that kind of, the magic is in the middle, Marcus. It's about leveraging technology, leveraging your personal experiences, and leveraging mentors and people who have done it before. And that's how you continue to grow as a leader and become a really, really amazing leader.
When you say the magic's in the middle, I think about a connective tissue or a glue. And I think about the human body, and it's without the ligaments between the bone and the muscle, like nothing's going to be functional. And I think too many times, and this is why I love having the discussions, and you talked about it's like this high quality, high class service, and then leveraging technology and automation to bring those two worlds together. And I learned this when I was on the board at Microsoft Services for 4 years. And I realized that Microsoft was responsible not only for creating products, but the services layer around them, which started to drive the business. And I thought that was really interesting and insightful. And maybe too often people go one way or the other, right? Like, hey, I'm just going to do my service and I don't want to use technology. Or I'm just using technology and the people side, whatever. And I think that there's an area for both. And this is why we have kind of left side, right side brains. So we are actually getting to the tail end of this discussion. Yeah. Is there anything that you think that you wish that the people would know about you? And also one final question I'll ask is kind of I love a two-part question, is if you were to give some advice to your younger self, what would that advice be if you had the information that you have today?
I love two-part questions because I can never remember the one or the other question.
It gives you two options.
Yeah, that's it. What would I like people to know about me? I do everything I can to be the best human that I can every single day. And I want to care for people around me. And that's how I live my life. And that's how I run my business. And that's how I bring people. The reason I bring people together that are good humans is because I want to make a difference in people's lives. I happen to run a company that gives me the opportunity to do that every single day. And what advice would I give my younger self? Is to, step back just a little bit and be grateful for what's happening as it's happening versus waiting until you're later to look back and say, wow, that was amazing. Because it's the stop and smell the roses. Really, really, it's important. And we should all exercise more. There you go. That's what I have for today.
Shelly, it's been absolutely wonderful. getting to learn more about your business and hear about the way that you operate and the way that you run. And I think my big takeaway from the final piece is stay in the moment and seize the moment, because there's a ton of opportunity. And if we all connect with one another, we can make great things happen. So Shelly, once again, thank you for your time, and looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope you have a beautiful day.
If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in your network, your team, your boss, or that recruiter still stuck in 2015. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss what's next in hiring and AI. Until next time.